Morning everybody, welcome to the show. A very simple task today. We're just going to assemble a table. Now the table itself is a fairly simple table. It's nothing extravagant. It hasn't got lots of fancy bits and pieces on it. It's a fairly simple piece of equipment and it's basically designed to match up to the rest of the furniture that's in the room. The rest of the room has fairly easy assembled tables painted white with a nice fancy top on it, and that's what we're up to at this stage. Now you've seen me go through all the processes of building all the componentry. This is all the bits and pieces that we've got. I've got them all set up here. So today we'll get to put all of that stuff together. But before we do, there's a couple of little things I want to talk to you about. Number one was attaching the tabletop to the frame. Now, attaching the tabletop to the frame is done with buttons. Now, there are a number of different ways of doing it. You can buy figure 8 metal buttons where you drill a hole in the top of the rail and drive a screw through into the rail and then put a screw up into the top of the table. When we come to fit the table, I'll try and see if I can find some. I know they're around somewhere, and I'll give you a bit of an idea of how they work. But the way we're going to do it, we're going to use buttons, which is a traditional method of how they were actually assembled in previous years. So this is what a button looks like. A button is just a piece of timber, like so, hole drilled in the middle of it, so the hole is down countersunk. And the way it works, and you can see I've got a demo one here, is if you have a look at some of the older tables that have been put together where they've been held with buttons, you'll see that they have a trench that's cut all the way along the rail, and these are positioned wherever you need them, right? Now, the traditional way of making these is the grain on the button needs to be, running in this direction here, right? You can see on this timber here, the grain runs along that way there. That's where the strength of the button is. If we had it around the other way, and the grain running across this way, there'd be no strength in it, and you'd only have to bump the table and you would snap the button off. And what they do is they sit in like so, right? Now, because of the size of our table, we have to cut these rebates before we actually assemble the table. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, instead of cutting a rebate all the way along, I'm only going to cut a few, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my domino cutter to actually cut the hole. And that way I just have to make the button to fit the hole. Now this one's not going to be used because it actually, as you can see, it doesn't fit. It's not big enough to go in there. It doesn't fit nicely, but that's the technique. And then the screw goes in through there and it comes up through into the table. So that's what we're going to do before we start. And then we're going to start assembling all the bits and pieces. And as you can see, I've made a couple, and the demo piece is a perfect place to actually practice some of that sort of stuff. Now, where we position it is going to be dependent on where we put our corner braces. Now, the corner braces are going to go across the corner and hold the whole thing together. There are two methods that I use and have used in the past. Is I'll put this brace on here. You can also put them up this way again if you want to make them go that way and you have a bit more room underneath. It doesn't matter how you put them on there. They're not going to be seen. They're integral part of the strength of the table, and we'll have to allow for that with when we put our buttonholes in. Now, if you don't want to put these in, you could pin the tenon into the mortise using a piece of dowel. Now, I've done that in the past where I've turned a nice pin with a little button on the end of it and made it a feature, somebody said to me, well, what's the best way of putting these things in? Do you put them on the inside or you put them on the outside? For this case, it doesn't really matter where they go because we're going to paint over the top of it. So if it's on the outside, and you want it seen, well then why not put a button of something over the top of it so that it makes it look like a little feature, and you put one or two on there if you like. Now this technique is what we call draw boring, and what we do is when we drill this hole through here, we don't go all the way through, but we go into here, and you can see, I have to get my pencil, or a pencil, just a second. You can see what's happened here. You can come in there close, Pammy. You can see what I've done here is just when I drilled the hole. See it. You can't see it. I'm going to draw around it. When I drilled the original hole went around there. You can see that there, right? And as you can see, I've offset the hole a little bit closer to the rail. And what happens is when the pin goes in, it actually pulls the tenon in tighter, so you get a tighter fit when you put the pin in. So when we tap that through there, it'll go in the hole and it'll actually pull that in nice and tight, and it's a good way of holding the thing steady. So if you don't have a lot of strength in the tenon, that's usually a good idea. We don't need to do that with this one here. We don't need to put these pins in because we're going to put in the corner braces. So that's how that's going to work. So to do that, here's what we're going to do. So what I've got here on my rails, I've got my two top rails for the sides and my two top rails for the ends. The distance that I have here is not very much, and when I put this into here, as you can see, we've got one there. That's where it has to go, 75 millimeters from there to here, and the same with that from there to there. Depends on how long you make that, depends on where this measurement's going to be. So I don't have a lot of room where I can put a button in, so I have to find the center. So it's important to dry assemble, get your measurements correct, and then set up where you're going to put things on the rail. Okay, so my ruler, just want to mark the center. Between there is 210 to 110. Do the same on this one. You'll also see I've marked which is the inside, and that's a fairly critical measurement. I've just got to get a square so I don't have a line on there. Okay, so just want to square that. Here's my line. Do the same on this one. So those two will get there or there. This one here, I need to get the measurement. So I'm 75 millimeter from the edge is where this is going to be. Do the same on this end. Find the centre between those two. That'll give me my centre one. So 470 is 235. Square this one up. I need to do the same on this one. So if I just put the two together, should be able to get that right because they're both exactly the same size. Now where I put them on here, I might just put a measurement on there. come in 30mm from my 75mm mark. Square that. That means I'm right up close to the brace with the button. Same on this end.
So would you put a third one?
So this one here is going to get 3.
Yeah.
And the single rail is going to get, well, the smaller rail is only going to get 1. So we've got 3 buttons on that one. And I have the inside mark, so it's important that I do that. Now I've got my domino cutter set up with an 8mm. I've set this with an 8mm. You can see it's quite a large cutter. Right, so that's the 8mm. I've got my height set at 28mm, and I've got my depth set at 12mm because I don't want to go all the way through my piece of timber. And it's just a matter of holding that in place. Normally I've got this set up with my dust extractor, but I didn't do it today. It's only got these simple little things. So there's my hole, and I have that button floating around here somewhere.
On the table.
On the table. So that'll fit into there like so. Like I say, this one's not the right size. It's got to be adjusted, and I've just got to make one to fit the hole. So I want the hole relatively large, so I've got a bit of width in the button. That's one. Just make sure you're holding that flat. You need enough distance between the top of the button and the top of the table, or the bottom of the table, so that you've got at least a fair amount of strength in here. This is radiata pine that doesn't have a lot of strength anyway, but will do the job. The distance that I have, you can make it further down if you like. There's no set measurement that you can use. You can just adjust it to what you need. This one here, to make sure I'm doing the inside, not the outside. Probably should have put the vacuum cleaner on it. So there's my 3 holes. The inside of this one. So getting all these measurements correct, quite important. Okay, so that's that little task done. Look at this, covered in sawdust. Okay, let's go over to the table. And we'll start an assembly. I'm not going to worry too much about the buttons until such time as we have the whole table assembled and the top made, and then I'm going to worry about making the buttons to fit. So Our first task is to set up our legs. Now I'm going to do this upside down, so it's a little easier. And I've got everything numbered, so with a bit of luck I should be able to get everything I think that's the back. So as you can see, that shows up right there now. Got some more bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble the two end pieces, then we're going to put the rest of it together, the long bits. Get that out of the way. You probably should get the right leg. It's not the right leg.
Jigsaw puzzle.
Hey?
A jigsaw puzzle.
The jigsaw puzzle, yes. Okay, so those two are going to go in there. And this one can go in here. Okay, so just a little dry fit before we actually put any glue in it. Make sure everything's right. Now, one of the things that we need to do is just ensure that everything is nice and square, and it looks like it's going to be pretty close, pretty good. Well, actually, it's spot on.
But of course.
So you've got a little bit of leeway back and forth if we wish to do anything with it. I'll try to get it square, flat. So let's add some glue, eh? All of these parts, I've sanded everything so that we've got it nice and smooth before we start. Tight bond 3. And a brush. Piece of paper. So here we go, folks. Part 1. Part 2 in leg 1.
So doing a coating just on the inserts is enough?
Yeah, that'll be adequate for what we need. It's fairly cool here, so the glue's going to take a little while to dry or set up. And some people say, well, why don't you just squirt it straight on the job? I tend not to do that. I tend to make a mess when I do things like that. And it doesn't help your work at all when you've got glue all over the place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a clamp on that, a couple of clamps just to make sure that it sets up and goes this way. Basic clamp on here. I haven't done that up tight yet. That's just because I want to make sure that it does pull up nice and tight. And I want it square as well. Check. Square. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. Just a little tap up with that one. There's my little mallet. Got it. Squeeze him up. Check everything else again. Flush on the top. Squeeze that up and then clear off the excess. Now while we're fiddling around making the Pam's getting all excited here, she's getting a new table.
A table for my beast of a sewing machine.
Just making sure I get all that excess out of there. Okay, so that's one part. Let's get part number two. I just have to make sure I get everything correct. Making one blue here. That's not right. Okay, so that one goes there. That's inside, that goes there. And this one goes, yeah. Just making sure I've got all my markings in the correct place. Now put the glue again. I have a habit of rushing things when I get excited about doing or finishing something or getting close to the finish of something and making an error assembling it. So it's always a good idea. Just take it calm, take it steady. Now the reason I'm only putting glue on one part is because my joints actually fit perfect. There's no gaps, and they're not flopping around all over the place. So I only need to put a bit of glue on each of these tenons. Okay. That's the beauty of using a well-adjusted electrical tool to build some of these. Now if I was cutting them by hand, probably be a different matter. I'd probably have to do a little bit more wedging and what are we up to? So I think that has to go that way. Once you get all that stuff in there, you've got no, you can't make any errors, otherwise you can't pull it apart. Check the square. Got it. Squeeze it up a little more. Clear out the excess glue. The basic clamps do a good job, don't they? Just the best clamps. So easy to use. Okay, so that's number 2. Right, now what I want to do is I want to set up my clamps. Now I hope this works. Let's see how it goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit that up on there, and that's not going to work at all. I have to think of another way. Let's just get it assembled first, and then we can figure out where to put the clamps. Okay. So that's my inside. Just looking for my numbers to make sure I've got it right. Okay, so that one goes.
What numbers have you got there on your board?
That way, number 3. Number 3 goes in here. I'm going there. This one has to go in here. Okay, so that'll go in there. And that one will go like that. Okay, so there's my 3 rails. Okay. This is awkward. Come on now. Don't want that to fall off the table. Glue. I hope you're enjoying this, because sometimes watching somebody glue something up, like watching paint dry or watching grass grow, it's just another technique. You may do different things differently to the way I'm doing things. There's always a new way. There's always another way. There's always a way somebody says, oh, you don't do it that way, do it this way. Well, you know, like, I don't tell people not to do things their way. I just hope that sometimes you will get something out of watching someone do it their way. And that one's a little tight, which is good, because it's got to sit up there while I put the other end on. Just thinking through how it should be done, how it could be done, and I presume everybody's got an answer for me. I bet you the first one is put it on the floor. Well, you didn't want to do it on the floor, it's hard to film it.
And it's awkward.
And it's awkward. Now, the glue is not the only thing that's going to hold this thing together. And I'm going to put some braces on it. And I think what I might do here is I might just take these crimps off. Make life a little easier. was helpful. I've got 3 of those clamps. One more. Okay. Okay, so there we have it, all together, and I just need to check the square. Oh, perfect. Spot on. Spot on. Yeah. So we have it all square that way. Now before it dries, I want to put the braces in. Now there's a problem with the braces. When you have your square, here. When we have our square, we can look over the top. When we have the square, trying to fit the square and trying to work out whether it's square or not from that panel to that panel, a bit difficult with a normal square. So what I've done is I've squared myself up a piece of MDF, and I'll just cut the corner out of it so that it can fit into the top like that, and I can check the square to see if I have to move anything any which way. So that will work on the top or the bottom. I can see that it's not quite square, but it will get there. So where's my bit of rag? Just got a little bit of glue here to wipe out. And so my next step now is to put the braces in. Now the braces are only going to be at the top, and the reason we've got the braces rather than pinning it is because I've got no front rail on here, and that takes a fair bit of the strength away, and pinning it, in my opinion, is not going to be helpful in keeping the strength up in the table itself. It might flop around a little bit, whereas the braces are going to have some screws in them. So I'm just going to take this off, and actually I'm a little out of square, so I've got to
Need to cross square it.
check it. I'm not quite sure what's causing it. That's my...
Let's have a look at that.
Got it. See how I've cut out that way. It's square here, here. We're right there. And we're right there. So I have got it square, which is good. There and there. So now it's just a matter of putting the braces in. So I've just loosened that off a little bit. I'm going to have to do some work with the... Now my braces...
I'll turn the table around, Cole. Just tilt the table around.
Which way?
Thank you, thank you. Really awkward with the camera today, getting the right angles.
So the braces are going to fit in like so. Like I said, it's a very simple table. It's not extravagant. It hasn't got any fancy jointing, really. I've just made it as simple as possible so that it just, like I say, it matches up to the rest of the furniture in the building, in the room. And so all I need to do now with my pocket hole screws is just to put some screws in there, put a bit of glue on it, and that should hold that in place. Flush with the top. So a little bit of glue and a few screws. Now with the pocket hole screws, there's a Craig system. You saw last week how I did that. A nice little box of pocket hole screws here. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we find the one that's actually going to fit. Now some of these are for plywood, some are for softwood, some are for hardwood. I like a coarse thread one for the soft timbers, and that's going to fit in there. We don't want something that will poke through the thing. So if I was using a longer screw, it would probably poke through. So we'll just use the short ones to go in there and just hold that in place. So there's plenty of places for that to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all of the top ones, and then I'll put the table on the floor and I'll do the other side of them. So I need 2, 4, 6, I need 8. And those. Trusty drill. So that's going to fit onto there just nicely. What I can do to hold it in place is put a clamp on here. Just to hold that in place while I put at least one of the screws in. It didn't work. Let's try again. Okay, so that will hold that in place while I put the screw in. Fix it. Quite right.
Got it.
So that'll go into there when I put some glue on. Okay. That's going to work. A bit of glue. just enough to hold it. Hopefully I can get screw in there. Well, that's not going to work. Or is it? That's got one screw in. Take this off now. I have a little problem here. It's called pull things apart and shorten it. Nice. I'll probably put the bottom ones in too, I think. Let's see how we go. Sort of.
Yeah, it works.
Sort of worked. I wasn't real happy with that, so I think I'm going to put it on the floor. So I'm just going to take my clamp off. Whoop. Knock the building down. This might work better. Just check to see if I've still got it square. Yep. Yep. Beautiful. This doesn't want to play today. Have to find another way. Come on.
Yeah, that's it.
going together quite nicely. I don't often use pocket hole screws or pocket holes for furniture because generally I'm making things with dovetails in. But in a case like this, I'm not going to be able to put a dovetail in anywhere.
Not on this part anyway.
Not on this bit there. It's looking pretty good. Let's try some more. Gosh, it's taken an hour nearly to assemble one little table. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or I'm slipping. And then I have to take one out. It's moved up, slipped a bit. Top one in it first. Just wasn't flush with the top, so I had to make sure that it goes flush with the top. And one to go. A bit more glue. one more. And there we have our table assembled. Now the last thing we have to do is I have to attach the pads for the wheels. Turn that upside down on our table again. I might be able to reach them.
Might be another job for the floor.
It might be another job for the floor, you're right. Let's have a look. See what we've got here. Okay, so pads have to go, and I think it is a job for the floor. Can't quite reach up there.
Yeah, at least you're over the top of it then.
Yep. And back down on the floor again. Now pads go on like so. You have to remember these are all going to be painted, so I'm not too concerned about having a nice smooth clean surface at this stage. That will get sorted before when we paint it. Okay, now the screws that I'm using for that are they're quite long. They're actually stainless steel decking screws. Posi drive, so they've got a square drive in them, and because we're attaching to end grain, we need something that's relatively long and relatively strong. So a little bit of glue on the bottom of one of those. I'm only going to put one on because we've run out of time. I'll do the others later. I'll just show you what it looks like when it's positioned. So, same drill. And when I made these, the rebate on the bottom is the same size as the size of the leg, so it should fit on there nice and square and not be seen as an addition, just a decoration. And they're easy to mount because everything should match up. Make sure it's all square. That's good. And you'll notice that when I've put these in, the screw holes are actually square. Most people would put them diagonally across.
These are on point.
But there's a reason for that. when we put the screws in here, we don't want them to interfere with the screw holes in the wheel. So we want the wheel pad to actually fit square on top of the pad. So the screw holes, as you can see, have got room to hang on. Now I prefer to put screws into timber across the grain rather than end grain, and that's why we've put these pads on there. It's just to give it a bit more strength, and we've got these large long screws that actually make it a little bit easier for the whole thing to hang on. You've only got to bump it incorrectly with short screws, and the next thing you know, you've got a wheel off. So we'll attach the wheels later, but that's how we do those, and then we're all for, and as you can see, the framework's starting to look a little bit like a table. Let me put it up on the bench, the right way up. Shift a few things first. And so there's the little table without the top on it. So as you can see, it's quite small. It's not a big table. It's going to sit up a little higher than that because it's going to have the wheels on it. And we're going to have a drop leaf off one side and the framework. This portion of the table is basically all the support for the sewing machine. There's room under here for Pam to put her legs when she's sitting at it. We're not going to interfere with drawers or as when you have a look at a lot of sewing tables. If you have a look at the commercial ones, you'll find that they have drawers down both sides. They've got flip open doors and all sorts of things like that. We didn't want that in the room because it just makes too much of a bulky item in the room. So simplifying it down to this sort of level actually allows the table first of all to be rolled around the room anywhere that Pam wants to put it, but it matches up, like I say, to the other parts of furniture in the room, which are this design. So simplify it, just keep it simple. So anyway, that's it for today. What we're going to do next week, I have no idea, maybe something to do with the top, but we've got it all set up ready to actually put together and put the top on it. So I have to have a little play with the top. I'll just grab one of the panels of the top just to show you what they look like. This is the panel for the top, and it's the perfect width for our table. And of course we're going to cut a piece off and we're going to hinge that on there and use it as a small table to hold the sewing machine. But when Pam's using it, she can put the tabletop up, and it gives her a bit more room on the table. And it's the same length as the tables that we already have, so that will fit on there like so. And it's the perfect fit. So this will actually flap down here. So simple idea, nothing fancy. It will, like I say, it's going to be painted white, and we'll get that done at some stage. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll fix up all the little bits and pieces that I have to do. Like I've got to put all the rest of the pads on. I might even put the wheels on it. We'll see how we go. But anyway, that's it for today. So I hope you enjoyed it. It was obviously not something that we normally do here. I hope you did enjoy it. I don't know that I would sit and watch, but anyway, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll make sure you get a notification that we're on the air. So have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you all next Sunday.